G'day Rugby League Tragics and welcome to episode 6 of the Rugby League Guy. I'm just going to do a couple of shout outs as I do every week, but before I do, just to let you guys know that we now have a presence on Instagram. For those of you that aren't so big on Facebook, there's a page, the Rugby League Guy, on Instagram. So give us a follow and we'll keep you updated. All right, shout outs. Julie Price, old school buddy of mine back in the day. Julie's a mad Cronulla supporter. She's thrown in an order for these, one of these. Always messages me and says, love watching the episodes and love the page. So thanks very much, Julie. I hope the Sharkies get up for you this week, and thanks for your support. Dennis Heyman, another Cronulla Sharks tragic, wonderful man, just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And Dennis is always very supportive of everything I do, but in particular the Rugby League Guy, because he's a bit like me. He bleeds rugby league, and you'll probably see some of Dennis's comments on the page as we go along, and you'll see that they're very well written, well structured, well thought about. So thanks, Dennis, for your support. Pete Majali, another wonderful friend of mine who I'm absolutely privileged to call a friend. He has played some first grade with the Balmain Tigers and the West Magpies, and he's now in most recent times been involved with the North Sydney Junior Rugby League representative sides. Fantastic human being again, and just absolutely loves rugby league. Loves mentoring. He's old school, and you wouldn't have him any other way. So thanks, Habibi, and thanks for your support again. Next one, Brett Horsnell, former Gold Coast Seagulls, South Queensland Crusher and Parramatta Eel. Been very fortunate to have met Horse through coaching Junior Rugby League here on the Gold Coast. Absolute gentleman, a wealth of knowledge, very supportive. And we'll have Horse down for an episode in the coming weeks, probably in the off season when everything's calmed down a bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about Horse's junior rugby league career and how that worked up into him becoming an NRL player. Absolute legend, and we can't wait for that one. And of course, last but not least, now, this next shout out goes to a mate of mine who has no social media presence at all. He's got nothing. He says, if you want to contact me, you text me. So unless I show him this video, he's not even going to know that I've shouted out to him. But Sean Maguire, mate, anyone that can go to a game of footy, which we did on Friday night, Titans versus Knights at Cbus Super Stadium, and wear a T-shirt with my melon on it, that's one thing. But to wear that T-shirt while you're sitting next to the bloke whose melon is on your shirt, that's next level. So, Sean, thanks, mate. That's when you try to determine what real, true friendship is, that's it right there. So, mate, greatly appreciate that. And, I've got a couple of other shirts coming up, so stay tuned, Sean. All right, a round 20 review. Now, the Cowboys up over the Broncos 32 points to 16, which made my day and the day of many, many Bulldog supporters, because it basically confirmed that the Dogs would not be taking the spoon home in 2020. So the Cowboys finished on a high, well done to them. Then it was Titans Knights at Cbus Super Stadium. As I said, I was there for that one. A tremendous game from the Titans. In particular, of course, AJ Brimson stood out, and there's talk of him now being a real consideration for the fullback spot for the Queensland Maroons. So no reason that they shouldn't consider him seriously. Big game again, Ash Taylor, of course, Jamal Fogarty, and my old mate Jared Wallace really got in there and mixed it up. So Kevin Proctor, scoring tries in the forwards. You're giving forwards a bad name, Kevy, but mate, well done to the Titans, and in particular, shout out to their coach, Justin Holbrook, who came out onto the field, as did the players, after the game, walked around, thanked the fans. They gave away boots, shorts. In fact, Jared Wallace went away with nothing but a pair of bike shorts. That's all he had left. He gave all his stuff to the kids. It was great to see. But the coach, Justin Holbrook, walked around on his own, individually, and thanked the fans, and I just thought that was outstanding. You don't see that from too many coaches at just the end of a normal round. You normally see them go around on a lap of honour after a premiership victory, but certainly that's how much Justin Holbrook has brought to this club, and how much the Gold Coast community love what he's done. And I can assure you next year's memberships will go nuts at the Titans, because they're really getting behind the team, as they have been anyway. But next year you can imagine, having won 5 in a row to finish this season, there'll be a bigger intake of members, I would say. All right, the Rabbitohs. What can I say about this one? I couldn't believe it. If I hadn't watched it, I wouldn't have believed it. 60 points to 8 over the Roosters. Now I'm going to say this. There's a little fallacy, if you like, out there, that if you get beaten by 50 points or have 50 put on you in a season, you can't win a comp. It's never happened. So for me, those things are there to be broken. I still think we're looking at a Roosters-Panthers grand final. If that's possible, I haven't analysed enough to see where they all fall and whether they, but I think Roosters-Panthers, and I still think the Roosters will be too good. So I think the 50-year thing is not really a consideration. I think the Roosters are too good for that, and I still think they'll go on and make it a trilogy. But nonetheless, it was disappointing, and the Rabbitohs did very well. They were hot, so not to take anything away from the Bunnies, they were smoking hot. But the Roosters, probably just a little bit shell-shocked, if you like, by how the Bunnies started. And the good news for Bunnies fans is that they went the full 80 minutes. So they didn't take their foot off the gas, which was really good for the Bunnies. I had the Bunnies, I had the Roosters in that one to win by 10. So there you go. Next game, we'll skim over this one pretty quickly, as you can imagine. Panthers, minor premiers, 15 games in a row. Bulldogs, 0. Outclassed, outplayed. I said during the week that Penrith are such a great side to watch. They're a young team and they're an honest team. And what I mean by that is they're playing the footy they want to play. They're playing the footy they're good at. And hats off to Ivan Cleary for allowing them to do that. So they've got their structure, all the things that you need, but they can just come in and out of it and play a bit of ad-lib footy, and it's fantastic to watch. I love watching Penrith. I'd love to see them go on and win the comp. They'd be my pick as far as a sentimental pick. Albeit I've said I think the Roosters will get up in the end, but I'd love to see the Panthers go on with this. Well done, minor premiers, and as I said last week, for the times that they have been minor premiers in the past, in both 91 and 2003, they have gone on to win the comp. They're going to have to be good to do it this year, but I'll tell you what, they're a fantastic young side. If they don't do it this year, they'll go very close, but the next 2 to 3 years, if they can keep this squad together, they're going to be very, very dominant. I can tell you that now. They'll probably be the next Roosters. So the Raiders 38, Sharks 28. What can I say there? I think the scoreline probably flattered the Sharks a little bit. The Raiders, of course, as was the case with a couple of sides throughout round 20, they dropped some of their big-name players to give them a break leading into the semis. The Raiders did that. Ricky made that decision, and given the Sharks had a few injuries themselves, particularly their big name, Sean Johnson, they weren't probably playing at full strength, but nonetheless, the Raiders were playing a pretty, I won't say substandard, because they're all very good players, but not their usual squad. So probably flattered the Sharks a little bit there, but the Raiders, I imagine they'll be fairly happy with that one. So the Tigers looked like they were going to get home against the Eels, but the Eels fought back in the last couple of minutes to take it out 28-24. I had thought that the Tigers might get up in that one. I thought they were a chance, but alas, they just missed it. Well done to Chris Lawrence, who's now retired from the game, and of course to Benji Marshall, who's still hoping to play next year, but no longer at the Tigers. Warriors 40, Manly 28. Another one I thought might be a close one. I took the Warriors. I thought it might be close. However, I have to say they're very impressive, the Warriors, and Manly once again disappointing. So I'm not sure what Des has got planned for them in the off-season. and the Dragons 30, the Storm 22. I did tip that one. As I say, I had a feeling that Craig Bellamy might rest a few of his players for the game, and he did. Not forgetting the Dragons also had a few players out, but young Sullivan in his first grade debut really took the bull by the horns, and I thought he did a fantastic job, and he's definitely a talent worth watching. Alrighty, so that's the round 20 review. My tips 5 from 8, not too bad in the end, considering I tipped the Dogs, as I always do. But 5 from 8, not too bad to finish. Now, we talked last week about sibling rivalry, family rivalry, how members of your family came to support different teams, and I said I'd kick it off this week with my own family. So basically, the folks came out from Scotland in 1965, and they lived in and around the Ashfield Five Dock area. And my dad adopted the West Magpies as his team, and then they moved eventually around Enfield, which is where I started school as a young fella, and I was probably just not quite embracing the game at that stage. I'd sit there and watch the old West game with Dad, and of course we watched it on a black and white TV, so I thought everyone was black and white. But then moved to Lakemba, and I became a dog supporter, and I've told you that story before, with Gary Hughes working with Dad, seeing him on the footy cards and thinking, yep, that's my team. And of course, being in the Bulldogs district, there was a lot of support for the Dogs, so I went with the Doggies. Dad's still a Magpie at that stage, of course. My brother, South Sydney supporter. I still don't quite know how that happened, but he's a South tragic. For some reason, my brother won't watch the game live. He records it, or you don't even have to record him now. You just go back and watch it later, and watches it later because he thinks it's less stressful. So, I'm not quite sure what that's all about, because he still doesn't know the score. So it's not like he knows the score and knows whether to watch it or not and sit there and relax. He still doesn't know the score. He just watches it after it's gone live. Weird. One of my sisters, as I said last week, Balmain supporter, fairly solid Balmain supporter back in the day, had season tickets to Leichhardt and all the rest. So we've got a Magpie, we've got a Rabbitoh, we've got a Tiger, and we've got a Bulldog, and my other sister doesn't support anyone. And my mum used to always, of course, just hope everybody had a win. So it was quite a peaceful household. But that's how it started for me. In 2004, I was blessed with twin daughters who were born in St George Private Hospital, and ultimately, yes, I had to set foot in Dragons territory, and left the hospital a week later. One in each arm, wearing the little miniature Bulldogs jerseys. About 7 years later, one of the girls approached me and said, "Dad, would it be okay if I go for the Dragons?" Because their mum's family are all mad St George supporters from way back in the day. Now St George Illawarra, of course. And I told her that would be fine as long as she stuck with them through thick and through thin, and she's done that, God love her. So my twin daughters, one's a doggy, one's a dragon. So it gets interesting when the two play each other. But that's a little rundown on how my sibling rivalry and my family have all come to support different teams. So, again, send us through some messages and I'll tell your story over the next few weeks about your sibling rivalry and your how your family all came to support different teams. And, of course, now I live on the Gold Coast and I'm sort of always a doggy supporter, but, I love the Titans, love getting behind the local boys. So a little bit of a soft spot there for the Titans as well, as you may have worked out. Alrighty, now my memorabilia for this week. So remember again, send in some photos, send in a bit of a story about some memorabilia that you may have, or just some sentimental rugby league items. This week I've got a pair of shorts. They will not go near me these days, but they are the Australian Rugby League team shorts made by Umbro. And these are from around 1993, these particular ones. In 94, when they went on the last Kangaroo Tour, they had the two stripes down the side, but these ones were the original ones, and I think they're about 1993. So still got those. As I said, they're not going to fit me, but for some reason I've hung on to him. So there you go. That's my memorabilia for this week. Alrighty, so Kieran Foran has signed a 1-year deal with Manly, back to where it all began, out at Brookvale. I'd say Desi had a lot to do with that, because they've always been good friends, and Desi's a big fan of Kieran Foran and vice versa. So well done to Kieran. He keeps getting up. Look, we can criticise players that don't get to play a lot of footy, and we say, well, they're not worth what we've paid them and all the rest, but they can't help getting injured. And Kieran Foran just keeps getting up and going again. It's, you got to feel sorry for the guy. Things didn't work out as maybe hoped at the Bulldogs, but nonetheless, it's not through a lack of trying on his behalf. So I wish him well as he travels back to Brookvale for a season, and hope that he can overcome some of those injuries and get a full season out. And just another shout out to Kieran Foran. The Dogs did a charity run the other day where they got involved with Loaves and Fishes, which is a church in Ashfield in Sydney, and they went out there and they served food to the homeless and the needy, and they did a bit of a clean up around the place. So first and foremost, well done to the Dogs for doing that on what would have been their Mad Monday. But a big shout out, as I say, to Kieran Foran, who turned up arm in sling and still contributed to that day. His time with the Dogs is done. He could have easily said, I'm not going to turn up. He was there, and there was over 20 players there. So well done to the Dogs on that initiative. A nice change for Mad Monday. Can't say I saw it in the media because, it wasn't bad news, but well done to those guys for doing that, and well done to the club for organising it. Alrighty, so you may or may not be aware that the NRL Grand Final this year has now been relocated back to ANZ Stadium from the SCG. Now, the reason it was going to the SCG for the next couple of years in the first place was because ANZ Stadium was going to undergo some renovations. Now, because of COVID, that's not happening. New South Wales Government and the NRL have come to an agreement to bring the game back to its original venue of ANZ Stadium. So, look, I'm a little bit disappointed because I love the SCG, being from that era through the 70s and 80s, and watching grand finals played at the SCG. I was looking forward to seeing a couple of games there over the next 2 or 3 years, just for the nostalgic point of view. But look, in fairness, there's probably, of the two grounds, ANZ's the best one to watch rugby league. So it works out well in the end, but it would have been nice to see, just for a bit of a walk down memory lane, another grand final, at least one at the SCG, but it's not to be. So back to ANZ for this year's grand final. Now, Luke Thompson, the Bulldogs' second rower, front rower, lock, wherever Steve Georgalis throws that dart, has been given a 4-week suspension for eye gouging on Panthers captain James Tarmo. People have said it's too severe. It should have been 2 weeks. Look, I guess when you've got a guy coming into the competition, he doesn't have any previous suspensions or any loading of points. You might argue that 4 weeks is a bit strong, but for me, I don't think the penalty is as harsh as someone losing their vision because someone stuck their fingers in their eyes. My message to Luke Thompson and to all players is, just keep your fingers out of people's eyes. Keep the dirty stuff out of the game. All right? And it surprised me, to be honest, because I thought he was a bit better than that. There's arguments that it was accidental and all the rest. I saw what I saw. I didn't like it, and I think 4 weeks probably covers it for a first offence, but cut that rubbish out. We don't want to see it. Alrighty, now Kevin Walters, 2 years appointed as Brisbane Broncos head coach, starting at the end of the once they recommence the pre-season training, which will be probably the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm still not convinced Kevy is the man for the job, and the reason I say that is because Kevy's a wonderful bloke. As I said last week, I've been fortunate enough to meet him on a couple of occasions. Absolute gentleman. Legend of the game. I just don't know that Kevy's got the mongrel that I think the Broncos need. I think they need a bit of an ass kicking down up there, and I just don't know that Kevy's got that in him. But at the same time, maybe they need a little bit of nurturing and a little bit of back padding. So Kevy could be the man. It's my understanding. I think I heard right that John Cartwright will be joining him as an assistant coach. Peter Gentle, who is the interim coach this year, will be joining Anthony Griffin down at the Dragons along with former Dragons player Matthew Elliott and former Penrith coach, of course. Interesting combination there at the Dragons. Anthony Griffin, head coach, Matthew Elliott and Peter Gentle as assistants. It's a bit of an old boys club in the sense that they're all old boys, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it'll be interesting to see what they get out of the Dragons and how they recruit, and I'm actually looking forward to that because I think the Dragons have got some really good young talent there. They've let young Sailor go, Tristan Sailor, which surprised me a little bit. I thought they might have been looking to hang on to him, but he's been released. So it'll be just interesting to see what they do down at the Dragons. All right, so now, in my opinion, it's a new little segment I'll throw in each week. And the shout-outs I did at the beginning of the episode to Julie Price and Dennis Heyman, those two in particular are not going to like it. But in my opinion, the Sharks are going to be making up the numbers in this semi-final series. And I think the Knights will also be making up the numbers. That's just my opinion. But I think the Sharks and the Knights are going to struggle and probably be gone fairly quickly from this year's final series. Now, moving on to this week's round, round 21, of course, which is otherwise known as week one of the semis. We've got, let me just make sure I've got these right. So the first game, Friday night, 7:50, Penrith versus the Roosters. In that one, I am going to take the Roosters. I really want to see Penrith get up and go in hard, deep into these finals. But I just think the Roosters, on the back of that flogging from the Rabbitohs last week, might just have something in a close one. Then it's the Raiders versus the Sharks. As I just said, I think the Sharks are probably just there to make up the numbers, unfortunately. So I think it's the Raiders, and I think the Raiders will, with their top squad back in this week, I think they'll probably put 25 to 30 on the Sharks. I say 25 because they've been known to chuck in a field goal there from time to time. The Raiders, so don't be surprised to see a field goal go in there. But I think 25 to 30 points over the Sharks in that one. Storm and the Eels. Look, the Eels are probably another team that I don't think are living up to their early promise. But I think the Storm will get up. You'd like to think that the Eels will lift, given it's a finals game, and as we know, the finals are a whole new ball game. But I just think the Storm will get this one. Rabbitohs Knights, as I said again, the Knights, I think they're also Reds, and I think the Bunnies on the back of a 68 victory over the Roosters is a sign that they're going to give the Knights a little bit of a touch up as well. As I say, I was at that game on Friday night at Cbus Super Stadium, and the Titans ran rampant over the Knights. Probably from midway through the first half onwards, they just looked disinterested, to be honest, and the Titans just took full advantage of it, and they smoked them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bunnies do something similar, and it's finals footy, so Wayne Bennett will have them up for it, no doubt about that. Alrighty, now before I close off, t-shirts, the rugby league guy, for all you nutcases out there that have been contacting me and want one. I'll be placing an order in the next week or so. So $35, all sizes, small through to about 5XL. $35, and it's about, call it $10 for postage. But if you've got sort of 1, 2, 3, up to 3 garments, I can get them all in the one post for the same price, $10. So unfortunately, that's Australia Post that set those prices, not me. But the rugby league guy, we've got a new one coming out as well. On the back, it'll have the rugby league guy, and it'll have the Facebook and Instagram logos, and our good friends at Jam Signs down in Sydney, Joanne Heaton, she's doing those for me, and I can't wait to see them. All right, well, that's the Rugby League Guy, episode 6. Thanks for putting up with me again. I hope you're enjoying it. Look, I'd love some feedback, and anything you'd like to see included, please let me know. In the meantime, keep loving rugby league, keep loving each other, and I'll see you next week. All the best. Toodles.